There we go. Took me a minute. All right. So let me see if I'm live on Instagram. Ooh, yes. Oh my goodness. So happy to be here. This is one of my favorite podcast episodes of the year. It is a 3-part series. Do you see that calendar on the back of me there? If you're listening to the audio, you've got to watch the video. That's what I call my year on a wall. I teach my clients how to create a year on a wall because it makes your um, calendaring, your planning so much easier to follow when you do this. So let me see if I'm actually showing up over here on Facebook. Yes, I am. Okay, cool. We're set to go. So in this 3-part series, you're going to learn the basics of what my clients learn of how to create their year on a wall. We're going to create a sustainable farm business marketing plan for 2026. And what I mean by sustainable is a lot of people create great marketing plans and they're working on their farm, but they don't love it. And so they end up giving up because of overwhelm and things of that nature. And if they had learned how to create a sustainable farm from the start, they would be much happier. So that's what we're going to do. So this episode, we're going to talk about part 1 of our 2026 farm marketing business plan, why you need an impossible goal. Okay. Not just a little goal, but an impossible goal. I'm going to talk to you about that. So, welcome. This is a recording for the Profitable Mindset podcast. Like I said, if you're listening to the audio on the podcast, the video is on my website at charlottemsmith.com/podcast. And you can see the year on the wall behind me there. That's what we're creating. So this series changes so many farmers' lives. The farmers in my program who actually implement the questions I'm going to ask you today here on the podcast, when they implement them, they're reaching huge goals they never thought possible. And you can do the same. It's really in how we learn to talk to ourselves. That's what makes a difference. It doesn't matter where you live or what your website is, it's your mindset that you've got to get clear in order to reach big goals. So, hey there, we've got some listeners watchers listening. Thanks for being here. All right. So before I dive in, I also want to let you know about a free week-long event I'm hosting in January on the 19th and 20th and the few days before that called the Farm Marketing Fix. Whether you're a brand new farmer, you're just dreaming of your farm, or you've been around for decades, you are going to learn how to rewrite or recreate your marketing in a way that makes you money. I will be coaching and offering marketing reviews live every day for a week. So to sign up for that, go to charlottemsmith.com/masterclass. Again, it's the Farm Marketing Fix. January, we're going to get your marketing in place. If you can't make it live the 19th or 20th, sign up anyway. You will get the replay. All right, so back to our planning process. So the next 3 episodes, I'm going to ask you lots of questions that you're going to put together for your 2026 marketing plan for your farm business. But here's why it works. If you've done a business plan before elsewhere, this is like nothing you've ever experienced. This works with mindset coaching in a way that can't help but make you successful when you implement it. And I wouldn't dream of starting any business without answering the questions that I'll share today and over the next couple of episodes. These questions will prevent you from experiencing burnout, both for you, but also for your family as well. Usually, a lot of farmers will say they're going out of business because they're not making the money that they thought they would, or people won't buy their products. But truly, they're burned out from the hamster wheel of trying to sell enough to make a living or trying to charge enough to make a living. At a certain point, they just give up, to the tune of 98% of farmers give up by year 5, 80% by year 2. So today's episode is going to help turn that around. We're going to help you. I will help you build a farm that you love as you build it, because If you don't love your farm as you build it today, you're not going to love it in some future place. Some people think that they'll get to this future place where they will love their farm. If they just hate it today, that's okay. They're going to love it in the future when they make money. There is no future place where you can love it if you're not learning to love it today. So, what you're experiencing today, you will take with you into the future. Just know that. Here's the results my clients are seeing. I teach this business planning to all the farmers inside Farm Marketing Mastery. If you're a client, it's in there. It's linked in your weekly email. And I get lots of feedback from them on their successes once they do this. One farmer said she increased her sales 86% due to completing just the questions in these 3 episodes. So know that success doesn't just happen to you. You don't just wake up and all of a sudden a bunch of people landed on your website and you have a profitable farm. You don't just build it and they will come. You've got to plan for it. It's why we have to do planning at least once a year, if not more, if not quarterly. You have to intentionally plan in order to make any money or the amount of money you want to make. So for those of you already inside Farm Marketing Mastery, make sure to revisit this Year on a Wall training. It's a 2-hour training in there. It's under the live sessions module. It'll help you focus on what's important, eliminate what's not, and without guilt, plan your sales launches for the year, all the things. And having your year on the wall, like you can see mine over my right shoulder here, your left, it helps you feel organized. It helps you see what you're doing when. It provides this big picture so that when someone calls on the phone, emails, texts, and asks you to do something, you have your year on a wall right there and you know whether you can say yes or it's a very easy no. So if you have access to the video version and all my clients get it, you get it lifetime access to that. I go in way more detail there that I'm able to do on camera versus the podcast episode here. So the first thing you've got to do for your farm marketing business plan is to dream big. Remember, I said this isn't like any business plan you've done before. I have farmers who do this business plan training in here and get grants. And the people giving them the grant say they've never seen as thorough or complete a business plan as the ones who are submitting the business plans they create with the training in here. So just know that if you hear something I say that sounds a little counterintuitive, like dream big, shouldn't you be realistic? Just know that this works. This works to make farmers money. It's working to get them grants too. So the first thing I want you to do is dream really big. What I mean by that is if you were to have a perfect year on your farm and it could not fail, what does that look like? Your perfect year, you know ahead of time it couldn't fail. What would that dream look like? That's what I want you to dream. This is your impossible goal. As business owners, I've found that we don't dream big enough. It's kind of trained out of us in life. Like when we're a little kid, when we're 4 or 7 or 9 years old, it's cute to hear kids say they're going to be president or an astronaut. And we encourage them at that young age. But then around middle school or early high school, people discourage those dreams and they encourage us to have more practical dreams that end up being really limiting. I saw this in my own family with my son. He's been obsessed with airplanes from the time he was like 2 years old or even younger. When he said he wanted to fly airplanes, everybody always encouraged him as a small child. But then as he got older, he got out of the military and he wanted to be a pilot. And other family members were telling him, oh, no, you don't want to do that. You want to do something more secure. Why don't you become an accountant? Which, if you knew my son, is a crazy suggestion. But people were telling him to think smaller. And I encouraged him. I was like, because I do this work, I said, you only have one life. If your dream is to be a pilot, do it. And guess what? Now he has his commercial pilot's license. And I am so glad, and I'm sure he's glad he didn't listen to people who were trying to squash those dreams. So I want to be that encourager for you here. When at some point in your life, people probably told you to think smaller, but now we got to dream big if we want to reach our big farm goals. So I want to explain why we've got to ask the question this way. A question I want you to ask yourself is, if I could have the perfect year and I couldn't fail, what would that look like? And here's why it's important to include that clause, and I could not fail. You see, our brains are wired to tell us immediately when something is wrong or when something is dangerous, or our brain wants to identify everything as something that won't work. So if you set a big goal, your brain is wired to immediately say, but I don't know how. I don't know how to do that. And I have to prevent failure, so I won't do it. That's where our brains go. And that's why most people don't try to reach big, outrageous goals. It's why we don't dream big, because our brains are wired to say, you're not going to do it, so don't do it. So this is a brain hack. Asking the question this way, if I knew I couldn't fail, what would I want? We're hacking our brains. We're taking care of that critical part of our brain by asking the question in this way. And we bypass the part of our brain that wants us to stay small and secure and safe and not dream big. So that's our biology. Our biology is going to tell us to stay small and safe, but you don't build a profitable farm if you do that. It's also why other people tell us not to have these big dreams. When you say what your big dream is, for instance, and someone else around you goes to criticism, it's because their brain is wired to try to protect you as well. All right, there's another thing that I believe deeply, because I teach hundreds of people every year for decades now. Here's what I know. Failure is just feedback. It's why I believe you cannot fail. The only reason my most successful farmers are successful is because they failed, so-called failed, more than other farmers. You can't fail. Failure is just feedback. It's just an offering to you that the way you tried didn't work. So you need to find another path. It's not a no, it won't work. It's just find another way. It won't work this way. It's just a fork in the road. There is no failure. I truly believe there is just feedback and learning, and that's it. As soon as you look at failure as a roadblock, you're going to be stuck not taking action. So we got to ask our brains, if I knew I couldn't fail, because I don't believe in failure, I believe it's just learning, what would my dream be? I want to give you some examples of some of my actual clients, the Farmers in Farm Marketing Mastery, some of their big dreams. If they knew they couldn't fail, someone said, okay, then I would set my goal. My dream goal would be to sell out of every single bouquet share. And then others got on board with that. They're like, okay, yeah, me too. I'd love to sell out on every vegetable share. I'd love to sell every last beef cow that I processed this year. So they wanted to sell out on everything. If they couldn't fail, that was their big dream. Another client wanted to retire her spouse within 3 years to work on the farm. And she did it in less than that time, when she realized when to set the dream this way. If I knew I couldn't fail, what would my dream be? Retire him from this job he doesn't like in 3 years. She actually did it in less time. Others' big dreams have been to retire themselves from their day jobs and have this farm support them full time. Some other big dreams in there, if they couldn't fail, were this one farmer was butchering about 1 cow a month, and then she'd go a few months and then she'd butcher 2 cows. And her dream, if she knew she couldn't fail, would be to consistently process 6 beef cows per month year round. And she did that. Others' big dreams, if they knew they couldn't fail, write a book. Replace income from their day job completely with their farm sales. Others have had dreams like building a house. These were all goals and dreams that they were afraid to set and say out loud because they hadn't been able to reach them in the past. And they thought, well, I've never been able to do it in the past, so I can't do it. I'm not going to do it now. So they were able to achieve these things and so much more when they use this process, though. So the other part of this is an impossible goal. Set a big, big goal. Often we're taught to set realistic goals. So why do I want you to set an impossible goal? Well, a realistic goal might be something like, I want to increase sales by 10% or 20%. But here's what happens when you set a small goal like that. You can often reach, say, 20% more sales by just working harder. You work 10-hour days instead of 8-hour days, and you make 20% more, and you think you reached your goal. But I'm here to tell you, if harder work equals more money, then farmers, all farmers, because they are the hardest working people I know, would constantly be making more money. But there is a ceiling. You cannot keep working more hours and make significantly more money. It ends. You hit a wall. You probably will get sick and tired and give up when you hit that wall as well. You cannot make more money by working more hours. All right. It gets you to the first little bit of money, but then you've got to learn new skills. The only way you sustainably reach bigger goals is by becoming a new person, a new identity. What that means, what I mean by that is new mindset skills, new ways of thinking, not by working harder. Working harder will only get you so far, and then you hit that ceiling. Okay. You got to learn to think differently to grow a sustainable, profitable farm. But with working harder, if you set a small goal and you can just work harder, you deceive yourself into thinking that's how you achieved the goal. But if you set an impossible goal, the only way to reach it is change how you think. And when you grow your mindset through coaching, your growth, your profitability on your farm becomes infinite. All right, let me give you an example. One of my farmers needed to set a big specific goal because she was in my program. Big goals force you to become someone new. But she was stuck in, I have no money. And that's the problem. She kept saying that. Well, my problem is I have no money. And this thought kept her small and scared. And just that thought alone, that mindset, a mindset is a thought. When you think I have no money, you're going to keep yourself scared small. You're not going to set a big goal. She just kept repeating all the reasons she couldn't make money. No one at the market was willing to pay her prices, so she said. Truth is, she hadn't yet learned the skill I teach of communicating the value so that people are compelled to buy. It's a skill to get people to pay your prices. No amount of cheap prices will make people value your products. You got to learn the skill of doing that. And so when I first asked her what her goal was, she said, my goal is to stop losing money. But when I said, well, how does that thought make you feel? It made her feel desperate and anxious, which are incredibly unproductive feelings. And we know that all actions are driven by emotions. So desperate and anxious is going to drive an action of you not raising your prices. It'll keep you broke. It'll keep you blaming people around you, blaming your market, blaming your community, your website, blaming the economy, blaming all kinds of things. So that thought, that mindset, stop losing money, I don't have enough money, keeps you broke. Instead, I had her choose a big goal, which felt really uncomfortable to her, which is totally normal. You've never set a big goal before. You're going to feel uncomfortable. Even if you have set a big goal before, it feels uncomfortable to set big goals, but that's normal. Like that is the price we pay. That's the currency we pay for reaching big dreams, is to feel uncomfortable setting that big goal. She said, all right, well then, if I really am going to feel uncomfortable setting a big goal, that's okay, because I already feel uncomfortable feeling scared and anxious because I'm broke all the time. So I suggested she choose the discomfort that would make her money. And she said, okay, I want to make $1,000 consistently every weekend at the market. In order to try to reach that goal, in order to become a woman who could reach that goal, she had no choice but to do it scared instead of just staying stuck. She knew that to reach that goal, she had to double down on the marketing training I had. She actually had to watch the videos and implement it, talk to her customers, ask them the branding questions. She had to be willing to feel the discomfort of pricing her products at a profit. She had to be willing to feel embarrassed. She said she'd feel embarrassed at the price she had to charge. It was so much more than she was used to charging for things that were cheaper at the grocery store. Of course, they're totally not the same product, but customers could perceive it as cheaper in her mind. She did this anyway. She spent the whole last season becoming a person who markets in a way that works in today's world. She spent months becoming a woman through her mindset shifts, through coaching, who was willing to feel awkward and fear and embarrassment and do it anyway. And by the end of the season, she was making $1,000 or $1,500 every weekend. And this season, she started out making consistently $1,500 every single weekend and went up from there after years of barely making any money, not even breaking even. And that was not because she worked harder. She didn't make $1,500 consistently a month because she worked harder on the farm and at the market. It was because she became the person who could reach that goal by doubling down on learning the skills instead of just saying, I'm not making any money. I don't see how I can make any money. People aren't buying. The economy is terrible. That was a dream she didn't think was possible. That's why my program's a year long. It takes time to shift your mindset. Now she's a woman who's making $1,500 consistently every weekend at the farmer's market, and it's still going up. So back to the very first question. What is your really big dream for 2026? If you knew you could not fail, what would that be? Just write that down and keep that at top of mind, because the to-dos underneath that are going to be, how do you have to think differently? Who do you have to become to reach that dream? This is where coaching every single week, watching other people get coached on their big goals, will transform your life like you never imagined possible. You will shift how you think when you watch others get coached on these things. If you're not wanting to raise your hand, because not everyone wants to get coached, but you will get coached by watching. Okay, and step 2 of this episode is your non-negotiable. What I mean is, what are your non-negotiables for the year? What are the things you will not sacrifice? This is important because many of us trade in and sacrifice our so-called non-negotiables when other people ask us for things. Like you have a plan, but then someone calls or texts or emails or drives up the driveway, and we give up whatever we decided we were going to do for ourselves or for our farm. We give up the very thing that would make our life fulfilling in order to let them determine what we're going to do next. This is why we feel like we're on a hamster wheel. We're constantly sacrificing our non-negotiables. When we do that, nothing changes. We don't have time for ourselves. We're overwhelmed. We're stressed. We don't have our dream farm, and we can't get it because we're constantly sacrificing our non-negotiables. So one of my non-negotiables now is a 2-hour focus period every single day where I focus on completing one thing that is a money-making thing on my business. So that's a non-negotiable. It took me a while to make sure that happens. Another one of my non-negotiables took me a lot longer to reach, and that was to get to where I had one full day off a week. To reach this goal, excuse me, it wasn't about making other people stop bothering me or asking me to do things. That's what people think. I can't reach my goal because my husband interrupts me, or my kids interrupt me, or customers interrupt me, or my employees don't do things right. To reach that goal, it was not about controlling other people, because that does not work. You can't control other people. It wasn't about making them stop asking me to do things. Instead, I had to become a person who has my own back, who keeps commitments to myself, and who doesn't sacrifice what I want because of guilt or obligation. It's the only way we're going to reach our dreams. I could feel guilty saying no and still say no anyway. I had to become a woman who could feel obligated to take care of everyone else first and still do what I needed to do. Okay. I could notice I could still feel bad, but do the thing anyway to reach my dream. And when I was not getting one day off a week, when I was sacrificing that day off for everyone else and everything else, my life was very unfulfilling. I was working 7 days a week. I was sick a lot, and I couldn't see the point in any of it. I truly had this recurring thought every single day of, is this all there is? I would say that at night. I'd say it to my partner, like, is this all there is? I get up, I work all day, I go to bed. And if it doesn't get any better than this hamster wheel, I did not like the life I'd created. I did not like farming. And a lot of my clients, when they first come to me, feel this way. So that's why we've got to do this now. You got to figure out what your non-negotiables are. So now taking a Sunday off completely has become so precious to me. It's who I am now. It is my identity. I don't do work. I might do nothing. I have the option to do nothing if I want. I might hike or go for a bike ride or play pickleball or watch a movie or organize a bookshelf. I might sit in the sun in the yard and read a magazine. I might cook. I might sit. That's it. However I want to use that day, it doesn't matter. I think it probably took me almost 10 years of talking about this non-negotiable before I found the work I now teach and I was able to finally reach this goal. So, and that is just something I just don't give up today. I don't speak on Sundays. If I travel and speak and I have to return home on a Sunday, I don't do that either. Like, it is a clear day off, no work. So other non-negotiables for me now include I don't sacrifice time with my kids. My kids are all adults now. So I make sure I've got plans to see them and interact with them and connect with them, whether it's a fancy once in a lifetime trip or a hike for the day. And the months of planning these events we do together, little events, big events, are as much a part of the fulfilling result as the event itself. And another newer non-negotiable is I say no to volunteer organizations and boards. This was a hard one for me because the bigger your farm business gets, the more you're asked to help out and volunteer. And I found myself sacrificing my family and myself for these opportunities. And I had to excuse myself from all those positions. I got myself in too deep on too many boards and I had to back out of all of them. It felt bad. I was embarrassed at having to back out, but that will prevent me from saying yes in the future. And I had to do that because my life was miserable. I was sacrificing time with my kids. This was when they were at home. I was sacrificing so much in my life. Maybe I know that there's a future season of life where that'll change. And I can say yes to being on a board or part of an organization or an advisor. But for now, this non-negotiable has made my life so much more fulfilling. I know I'll have time to volunteer as I get older when I'm working less. I see my own mom. She's retired. She volunteers for so many organizations. She teaches classes. She does all sorts of things for local organizations and global organizations. And her volunteer work is her purpose. It gives her purpose. For some reason, I thought I was obligated to do it all now. And I felt guilty saying no, but that's not sustainable for me. So I had to decide that for this season of life, volunteering is a non-negotiable, a huge no. I can pick it up later on. Now, that doesn't mean I don't help out a friend in need or offer to host an event or advise for an hour or two on something. I do plenty of volunteer work here and there in bits as I have time, but it is a hard no to, for instance, someone says she feels like AI generated. I love it. No, I'm not AI generated. It's so funny because I've been watching videos and wondering what makes them seem AI generated. But this is not AI generated. This is legit right now. So I'll do volunteer work in the future. And for you right now, just make a list of your non-negotiables that you're not willing to sacrifice this year. And if your brain is freaking out about how you can possibly do this, remember, I have a time management class. It's called Master Your Time, Master Your Life. It teaches you step by step how to honor these non-negotiables, and going through that process, you learn the skill. Because I tell you, it's not easy to say no to things you've always felt obligated or felt guilty saying no to. It is a learned skill to do that. Okay, so just know that if you don't think you can do it right now, it's a learned skill that you can do in the future. And so moving forward, I hope you'll make this the year you decide to change your mindset which is changing your thoughts to thoughts that are useful and productive. And that is a learned skill. I hope you'll learn to stop people pleasing. These are all things we coach on every week in Farm Marketing Mastery. How to set boundaries and keep them not just with other people, but with yourself too. And ultimately, how to build a profitable farm. So again, start with our free training. Don't miss it. Farm Marketing Fix. It's going to be a week long. I'm going to coach every single day. We're going to have a private Facebook group. I'm going to do all kinds of fun things in there in January. And you can get an invite to the private Facebook group and the Farm Marketing Fix at charlottemsmith.com/masterclass. That's it. Thanks for being here. And oh, the comments are so funny when you go live on social media. I really, it's something I think you have to have a thick skin to do, but I'm always trying to get thicker skin, so I'll give it a try. All right, that's it for today. Again, calendar, your year on a wall on the calendar behind me. This is what we're doing in this 3-part episode. Today is part 1, and we'll have the next 2. The last one will be January 2nd. So we'll get your 2026 season all mapped out so you can build that profitable farm. All right, that's it. I'll see you. I'm not going to say what you're telling me to say in the comments, but I appreciate you trying. All right, take care, everyone, and I will see you next week in part 2. All right, take care. Bye-bye.